Ren simply doesn't have the natural talent for elite competition, Coach Boris Kalenko told me, folding his hands neatly on his desk, his tone carrying the patient, regretful weight of a man delivering unfortunate but unavoidable news. I know this is difficult to hear, but I'd rather be honest with you than let her waste years chasing a level she's not built for. I sat across from him in his cramped office at Meridian Elite Gymnastics Academy, watching him deliver a verdict about my 10-year-old daughter's future with the calm authority of someone who delivered this exact speech many times before. She's worked incredibly hard, I said. Her scores on the beam alone have improved dramatically this year. Hard work only carries a gymnast so far, he said. At some point, talent has to meet the work. I don't say this to discourage her. I say it because I think it's kinder to be honest now than to let false hope build for years. I left that meeting devastated, watching my daughter through the gym's observation window, flipping through a routine with the same fierce concentration she'd carried since she was 6 years old, having no idea her coach had just quietly, calmly told me she wasn't good enough to keep pursuing the sport she loved more than anything else in her life. I had no idea, sitting in my car afterward, replaying his words on a loop, that within 8 months, I'd uncover evidence proving Boris Kalenko had been submitting fabricated scores for years, systematically suppressing ordinary students' rankings to manufacture scarcity for a scheme that funneled desperate parents into paying thousands for private sessions that were never actually necessary at all. My name is Perpetua Landry. I'm 38, a data analyst outside Charlotte, and this is the story of how my daughter's gymnastics coach fabricated years of competition scores to manipulate parents into paying for services their children never actually needed, and how I uncovered the entire scheme by doing exactly what I do professionally every single day, comparing the data against the story I was being told. Ren's gymnastics journey. Ren started gymnastics at age 6, drawn immediately and completely to a sport that seemed to unlock something in her I'd never quite seen before, a fierce, focused joy that transformed her from a somewhat shy, cautious child into someone who threw herself, literally and figuratively, into every new skill with total commitment. We joined Meridian Elite Gymnastics Academy when Ren was 7, drawn by the Academy's reputation for producing regional and occasionally national-level competitors, along with glowing reviews from other parents whose daughters had trained there for years. Boris Kalenko, the Academy's head coach, came with an impressive resume, having coached at the club level for nearly 2 decades and produced several competitors who'd gone on to collegiate gymnastics programs. He's tough, but he gets results, another parent, Odalis Renfrew, told me during our first tour of the facility. My daughter's improved more in 1 year under him than she did in 3 years at her previous gym. I signed Ren up with genuine optimism, watching her thrive over the following 2 years, advancing steadily through the Academy's internal skill levels, earning consistent praise from Kalenko during our periodic parent check-ins. Early praise, then silence. Ren's first 2 years under Kalenko's coaching produced the kind of steady, encouraging progress that made the substantial monthly tuition feel entirely worthwhile. She has real potential, Kalenko told me during her second-year evaluation. If she keeps developing at this pace, I could see her testing for our competitive team within the next year or 2. That optimism shifted gradually during Ren's 3rd year. Subtle at first, framed as ordinary coaching feedback rather than any dramatic reversal. She's plateauing a bit, Kalenko mentioned during one pickup, an offhand comment I didn't think much of at the time. Some athletes hit natural ceilings. We'll keep working with her, but I want to manage expectations realistically. I didn't question the shift initially, assuming it reflected genuine athletic development patterns. I had no specific expertise to evaluate myself. I trusted Kalenko's professional judgment, the way most parents trust the coaches entrusted with their children's athletic development. The regional meet, everything. Shifted at a regional qualifying meet roughly 8 months before that devastating office conversation, an event where Ren competed against gymnasts from several other academies across the state. I sat in the stands alongside other Meridian parents. Watching Ren execute a beam routine, I recognized as significantly cleaner and more confident than her scores over the preceding months had suggested she was capable of producing. An independent judge, a retired competitor named Fenimore Achebe, who I happened to sit near during a break between rotations, made an offhand comment that would eventually unravel everything. "Your daughter's beam work is quite strong," he said, glancing at his scoring notes. "Surprising that her internal academy scores have her ranked this low going into today. Her actual execution today is well above what her submitted training scores would suggest." "What do you mean by submitted training scores?" I asked, my attention sharpening immediately. "Academies submit periodic internal scoring data to the State Federation for ranking and placement purposes between official meets," he explained. "It's meant to track development consistency. Your daughter's submitted scores have trended noticeably lower than what I'm seeing from her live today." A nagging question. I thanked Fenimore for his observation, filing it away as mildly curious rather than immediately alarming, though something about the discrepancy continued nagging at me over the following days. I worked as a data analyst professionally, spending my entire career comparing reported figures against underlying source data to identify inconsistencies. And something about what Fenimore described triggered exactly the kind of pattern recognition instinct my job had spent years sharpening. "Have you ever noticed anything unusual about how Kalenko reports Ren's progress?" I asked my husband Desmond that evening, describing my conversation with Fenimore in detail. "Not really," Desmond said, "though now that you mention it, her comments from him have felt increasingly negative this past year, even though she seems to be performing better than ever whenever we watch her practice ourselves." That contradiction, once named directly, felt impossible to ignore. Requesting the records. I contacted the State Gymnastics Federation directly, requesting access to Ren's officially submitted training and competition scores under the organization's parent transparency policy, which allowed guardians to review any data submitted regarding their own child's development records. The Federation representative, a helpful woman named Maricela Achterberg, sent over 18 months of submitted scoring data within the week. I spent an entire Saturday afternoon cross-referencing those numbers against my own personal video archive, footage I'd recorded from the gym's designated parent observation area over the same period, following the Academy's own stated policy allowing parents to film during open practice sessions. Building the comparison. I've been recording Ren's practices somewhat habitually for over a year, initially just to help her review her own form and track her personal progress, never imagining the footage would eventually serve as forensic evidence against her own coach. I built a spreadsheet, cross-referencing dates, comparing the Federation's officially submitted scores against my own contemporaneous notes and video timestamps from the exact same practice sessions. The pattern that emerged sent a cold chill through me, sitting alone at my kitchen table on a quiet Saturday evening. Ren's submitted scores consistently ran anywhere from half a point to a full 1.5 points below what her actual performances, visible clearly in my own footage, appeared to warrant. The discrepancy wasn't occasional or explainable through ordinary scoring subjectivity. It was systematic, consistent, and it had been happening for well over a year. Checking other families. I reached out cautiously to two other Meridian parents I'd built friendly relationships with over the years, Odalis Renfrew and a father named Thaddeus Okonkwo, both of whose daughters trained in Ren's same age and skill bracket. I explained what I'd discovered without yet naming any specific accusation, simply asking if they'd ever compared their own daughters' submitted Federation scores against their personal impressions of practice performance. "I've actually wondered about that," Thaddeus admitted. "My daughter's scores dropped noticeably last year, right around the time Kalenko started pushing us toward paying for additional private sessions. I assumed it reflected her actual regression, but now that you mention it, her form and practice never seemed to match what her scores implied." Odalis shared similar concerns after reviewing her own daughter's numbers, describing an almost identical pattern of declining official scores that had coincided precisely with increasingly urgent recommendations from Kalenko that additional paid coaching was necessary to remain competitive. Recognizing the pattern. The pieces began assembling into a coherent, deeply troubling picture. Kalenko appeared to be systematically suppressing the officially submitted scores of ordinary students, those paying standard academy tuition without additional private lessons, while simultaneously recommending expensive supplemental coaching as the solution to declining rankings his own manipulated numbers had artificially created. "This isn't random error," I told Desmond, laying out the spreadsheet data across our kitchen table. "Every single suppressed score correlates directly with a subsequent recommendation for paid private sessions. He's manufacturing a problem, then selling us the solution to a crisis he invented himself." Investigating the elite track. I began paying closer attention to which students Kalenko consistently promoted toward the Academy's competitive team track, noticing a pattern that, once visible, felt impossible to have missed for so long. Nearly every gymnast advancing steadily through the elite pipeline came from families who'd been paying for Kalenko's private supplemental sessions, an additional fee structure separate from standard academy tuition, often totaling several $100s per month beyond base costs. Several of those same families, I discovered through careful, discreet conversation, included the Academy's primary financial sponsors, families whose names appeared prominently on the gym's donor recognition wall in the main lobby, families whose daughters seemed to receive consistently favorable scoring, regardless of how their actual practice performance compared to other students. Confirming through video. I spent the following month methodically expanding my video documentation, recording every practice session I could legally attend under the Academy's stated open observation policy, building a comprehensive archive that would eventually span nearly a full year of Wren's training, compared directly against her officially submitted scores. The pattern held consistently across the entire data set. Wren's actual, visible skill execution remained strong, often genuinely excellent. Throughout the period her official scores had supposedly been declining. The submitted numbers bore almost no relationship to what my camera had actually captured happening on that gym floor. Consulting an attorney. I contacted a sports law attorney, Genevieve Okonkwo, no relation to Thaddeus despite the shared surname, who specialized in athletic organization disputes and had previously handled cases involving youth sports fraud. "What you're describing," she told me after reviewing my spreadsheet and sample video comparisons, "constitutes a fairly serious pattern of fraudulent reporting to a governing athletic body, combined with what looks like a deliberate scheme to manufacture demand for services the affected families didn't actually need. This isn't just an ethical violation. Depending on how the Federation and Academy's contracts are structured, this could constitute actionable fraud." "What do I do with this information?" I asked. "We build a comprehensive case first," Genevieve said. "Before confronting Kalenko or the Academy directly, we need enough documented evidence that they can't simply dismiss this as a misunderstanding or isolated clerical error. Given what you've already assembled, I think we're close to that threshold, but we need a few more pieces to make the pattern undeniable." Requesting financial records. Genevieve helped me file a formal request, citing consumer protection statutes, requesting Meridian Academy's internal billing records related to supplemental private coaching fees over the previous 2 years, records the Academy was required to maintain for tax and business licensing purposes, and that, under certain circumstances, became accessible to affected consumers investigating potential fraud. The Academy initially resisted the request, but Genevieve's persistent legal pressure eventually produced a partial financial disclosure that confirmed our suspicions with startling clarity. The families whose daughters occupied the Academy's elite competitive track paid, collectively, nearly $40,000 annually in supplemental private coaching fees beyond standard tuition, fees that flowed directly to Kalenko personally, rather than through the Academy's standard payroll structure. The sponsor connection. Further investigation revealed that 3 of the Academy's primary financial sponsors, families whose donations funded significant portions of the facility's equipment and renovation budget, all had daughters occupying permanent positions on the elite competitive team. Positions that, based on my video comparisons against other students' actual performance, didn't appear justified purely by relative skill. This suggests an additional layer to the scheme, Genevieve said, reviewing the sponsor and billing overlap. Kalenko appears to be maintaining favorable rankings for sponsor families and paying private lesson families simultaneously, funded partly through suppressed rankings for everyone else, which creates the artificial scarcity driving desperate parents toward those paid sessions in the first place. Deciding how to proceed. I faced a difficult decision about how exactly to bring this evidence forward. Confronting Kalenko directly risked immediate retaliation against Wren's standing at the academy, while going straight to the state federation risked a lengthy investigation that might not adequately address the immediate financial and emotional harm already inflicted on multiple families. I think we need to do both, carefully sequenced, Genevieve advised. We file the formal complaint with the state federation first, since they have jurisdiction over falsified competition data. Simultaneously, we prepare a broader consumer fraud complaint regarding the billing practices, which gives us leverage regardless of how the Federation's internal investigation unfolds. Building the coalition. I reached out more broadly to other Meridian families, discreetly gauging interest in a collective complaint, rather than pursuing this as an isolated grievance from a single frustrated parent. Odalis and Thaddeus joined immediately, having independently confirmed similar score discrepancies in their own daughters' records. 2 additional families came forward once word spread quietly through the Academy's parent network, each with strikingly similar stories of declining official scores paired with increasingly urgent recommendations for paid supplemental coaching. I always felt like something was off, one of the additional parents, a mother named Cordelia Ashworth, told me during our first coalition meeting. My daughter would come home from practice glowing about how well she'd done, and then a week later, I'd see a report suggesting she was struggling significantly. I chalked it up to normal ups and downs. I never imagined it might be deliberately fabricated. Filing the complaint. We filed our formal complaint with the State Gymnastics Federation roughly 2 months after Fenimore's offhand observation had first planted the seed of suspicion, submitting comprehensive video documentation, the score discrepancy spreadsheet, and the partial billing records Genevieve had successfully obtained through her legal request. The Federation, facing a coalition complaint involving 5 separate families with consistent, well-documented evidence, opened a formal investigation within weeks, a significantly faster response than an isolated, single-family complaint likely would have generated. The Federation investigation. The Federation's investigator, a methodical former gymnast named Perpetua Holloway, no relation to me despite the shared first name, spent nearly 6 weeks reviewing our submitted evidence alongside additional records she requested directly from Meridian Academy and Kalenko himself. The pattern you've documented is remarkably clear, Holloway told our coalition during a progress update call. We've cross-referenced your video timestamps against the Academy's submitted scores and found consistent, unexplained discrepancies affecting multiple students across an extended period. We're also examining the financial relationship between the sponsor family's rankings and their donation history, which raises additional serious concerns beyond simply the scoring irregularities. Confronting Kalenko. The Federation formally confronted Kalenko with our documented evidence during a hearing roughly 2 months after our initial complaint, a meeting our coalition attended as complainants alongside legal representation. Kalenko's composure, so carefully maintained during years of confident, authoritative coaching interactions, crumbled almost immediately once presented with the comprehensive video-to-score comparison spanning multiple students and an extended timeline. I want to be clear that any adjustments to submitted scores reflected my professional judgment about long-term development trajectories, he said, his voice tight with barely contained panic. I wasn't fabricating anything maliciously. I was managing expectations appropriately. Managing expectations doesn't require submitting scores nearly a full 1.5 points below documented, video-verified performance, Holloway said, her tone carrying open skepticism. Nor does it explain why every suppressed score correlates directly with a subsequent recommendation for paid private coaching that generated direct personal income for you outside the Academy's standard payroll structure. The financial motive exposed. Halloway's continued questioning pressed directly into the financial relationship between suppressed scores and Kalenko's private coaching income. "Can you explain," she asked, "why every family whose daughter's scores you suppressed subsequently received a direct recommendation from you personally to enroll in supplemental private sessions that generated income paid directly to you rather than through the Academy's standard billing?" Kalenko had no adequate answer, his attempts at explanation growing increasingly circular and unconvincing as the hearing continued. "I believed those sessions would genuinely help these athletes," he insisted. "I wasn't trying to deceive anyone. The video evidence suggests these athletes didn't actually need additional help," Halloway said. "Their documented, unedited performance was consistently stronger than what you reported to this federation. That's not a coaching philosophy difference. That's fabricated data used to generate personal financial gain." The sponsor question Halloway also pressed Kalenko on the pattern connecting sponsor family donations to consistently favorable elite team placements, a line of questioning that visibly unsettled him even more than the scoring discrepancies themselves. "Can you explain why every major financial sponsor's daughter maintained a permanent elite team position throughout this period, despite documented performance data suggesting at least 2 other non-sponsor students demonstrated comparable or superior skill execution during the same time frame? Sponsor families' support ensures this academy can continue operating at all," Kalenko said, a defense that did little to address the actual substance of the question. "I don't think it's inappropriate to consider the broader relationships that sustain this facility." "It's inappropriate," Halloway said flatly, "when those considerations directly override objective, documented athletic performance in determining which children receive competitive opportunities they've legitimately earned." The Federation's ruling. The Federation issued its formal ruling roughly 3 weeks after that hearing, finding Kalenko in violation of multiple governing body regulations regarding accurate score reporting and undisclosed financial conflicts of interest. His coaching certification was suspended pending further review, and the Federation required Meridian Academy to retroactively correct nearly 2 years of submitted scoring data across all affected students. Wren's corrected scores, once accurately reflecting her actual documented performance, qualified her retroactively for the competitive team placement Kalenko had told me in that devastating office meeting she simply wasn't talented enough to achieve. Telling Wren I sat down with Wren once the Federation's findings became official, carefully explaining what we'd discovered over the preceding months, the fabricated scores, the financial motive behind Kalenko's discouraging feedback, the retroactive correction that finally accurately reflected her genuine ability. "So he lied about me not being good enough," Wren said, processing information that clearly landed with complicated weight for a 10-year-old who'd spent months internalizing a coach's confident assessment of her limitations. "He did," I said. "He lied about you and several other girls, specifically because telling the truth about how talented you actually were didn't make him as much money as convincing your parents you needed extra paid help." "That's really messed up," Wren said, a bluntness that made me laugh despite the seriousness of everything we'd uncovered. "It really is," I agreed, "but now everyone knows the truth, and your actual scores show exactly how talented you really are, without anyone's lies attached to them anymore." Meridian Academy's response. Meridian Academy, facing mounting scrutiny from the Federation's public ruling, alongside growing local media attention, once our coalition's story reached a local news outlet covering youth sports accountability, terminated Kalenko's employment within days of the Federation's findings becoming official. The Academy's owner, a previously distant figure named Augustine Ferreira, who'd largely delegated day-to-day operations entirely to Kalenko, issued a public statement acknowledging serious failures in oversight and committing to implement independent, third-party score verification processes moving forward. "We should have caught this ourselves," Ferreira told our coalition during a meeting arranged to discuss the Academy's corrective measures. "I trusted Boris completely, for years, without adequately verifying that trust against actual outcomes. I understand that trust cost your daughters real opportunities they deserved and didn't receive." New coaching, new trajectory. The academy hired a new head coach, a former national-level competitor named Marisol Vantour, who implemented transparent scoring practices that included regular parent access to raw performance data alongside any officially submitted federation numbers. Wren's development under Vantour's coaching accelerated rapidly once accurate, honest feedback replaced years of manufactured discouragement. She has genuine elite potential, Vantour told me during Wren's first formal evaluation under the new coaching structure. I don't know what she was told previously, but I want to be clear that her actual documented ability easily supports competitive team placement and has for quite some time based on the historical footage you've shared with me. Wren's return to competition. Wren competed at the next regional qualifying meet 9 months after that devastating office conversation, her officially corrected scores finally reflecting years of genuine, hard-earned skill development that Kalenko's fabricated numbers had spent years actively suppressing. She placed third in her age division on beam, a result that, watching from the stands alongside Desmond, felt like far more than a simple competitive placement. It felt like vindication for every month she'd spent believing, based on a trusted coach's false assessment, that she simply wasn't good enough for a sport she loved with her entire heart. Reflecting on the discovery, I keep thinking about how close we came to just accepting his verdict, I told Desmond one evening, watching Wren practice a new routine in our backyard. The same fierce concentration she'd carried since age 6, now paired with a confidence that felt entirely restored. If Fenimore hadn't made that offhand comment at the regional meet, we might have simply pulled her from the sport entirely, believing Kalenko's assessment of her limitations was accurate and final. You didn't just accept it, though, Desmond said. The moment something felt inconsistent, you investigated properly, the way you investigate everything professionally. That instinct is exactly what uncovered this entire scheme, not just for Wren, but for 4 other families who had no idea they were being manipulated the same way. What I know now. People sometimes ask if I regret the months I spent building a comprehensive case against Kalenko, rather than simply pulling Wren from the academy quietly once his assessment first devastated us. I don't see it that way at all. What began as a personal investigation into my own daughter's discouraging coaching feedback ultimately exposed a systematic scheme that had for years manipulated multiple families' financial decisions and their children's athletic opportunities, built entirely on fabricated data designed to manufacture artificial scarcity and desperation. Wren's restored confidence and corrected competitive standing mattered enormously to me, but so did the broader accountability that emerged for every other family Kalenko had quietly deceived alongside us. Where we are now. Wren continues training under Vantour's honest, transparent coaching, her genuine talent finally allowed to develop without the artificial ceiling Kalenko's fabricated numbers had imposed for years. She's already qualified for the next tier of regional competition, a trajectory that, according to Vantour's professional assessment, could realistically support elite-level competition within the next several years if her current development pace continues. Our coalition of families remains in occasional contact, bound together by a shared experience of discovering just how thoroughly a trusted authority figure had manipulated our understanding of our own children's abilities for personal financial gain. Some nights, watching Wren practice with the fierce, restored joy that had briefly disappeared during those discouraging months under Kalenko's coaching, I think about how much depends on parents trusting their own observations, their own data, even when a confident authority figure insists that data doesn't matter compared to their professional judgment. Sometimes, I've learned, the numbers really do tell the true story, if you're willing to actually compare them against what you can see with your own eyes.